no secret to my training. The most important thing is believing a breakthrough is possible. You must build your belief every day on every run. The magic is in the heart, confidence, and the belief that you can fly.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the House of Zoom. My name is Brett Holtz, and I am very fortunate enough to be here with you this evening on behalf of an extremely talented Nike running product creation team back on our world headquarters in Beaverton, Oregon, made up of designers, engineers, developers, testers, and marketing. Thank you very much for inviting me to be here with you in Tokyo, the world's fastest city, a mecca and source of inspiration for me, both personally as an athlete, as well as professionally. I've always been inspired by Japan's rich culture in the sport of running and the passion that this country has and culture has for the sport. The heritage so proudly rooted in amazing athletes and a passion for the craft of creating some of the world's fastest racing and training products. In fact, I was just reading the other night an article that talked about the 2018 Tokyo Marathon, and 9 Japanese runners ran under 2 hours and 10 minutes in that race. We've only had 17 US athletes in history run faster than that, and this country put 9 in one race under that time. That's a pretty amazing dedication to the sport and to the athletes. And although our cultures are thousands of miles apart, I believe it's that passion that actually connects us in a way. As the team that I'm fortunate to lead back home is driven by that same passion and that same obsession for the sport and for the athletes, and for creating the world's fastest product to give them every advantage over the competition. This passion isn't necessarily something that's new. It actually started decades ago, right here in Japan, as our 2 Nike co-founders, Phil Knight and Bill Bowerman, discovered critical partnerships that would help enable them to bring their visions to life. Phil Knight's vision was one of an athletic company that could bring new, innovative product solutions to maximize athletes' potential and bring inspiration to all athletes. Bowerman's vision was a little bit more specific. As the head coach of the University of Oregon track and field program, he was all about the athlete. He was all about giving them every competitive advantage possible in the product that he created for them. Bowerman wasn't only a coach, and that was his brilliance. He was an innovator. He solved problems in a different way. Whether it was the product on his athletes' feet or even the surfaces for which they ran on, he was looking for every advantage for them to be lighter, stronger, and faster than their competition, stripping away anything that wasn't necessary from the product. Oftentimes, his prototypes would fall apart before his athletes could even cross the finish line. But that's how hard Bowerman pushed, really breaking the barriers and limitations of giving his athletes every advantage and allowing them to win over their competition. And lucky for us, today, 50 years later, Nike running team is still driven by these same principles that Bowerman and Phil Knight established all those decades ago. We continue to carry that same passion for the product and obsession for maximizing our athletes' potential. We are a team that's on a mission, and that mission is to create the world's best running products and to give our elite athletes and all athletes a competitive advantage no matter what that barrier is that sits in front of them. Fortunate for us, Nike is a company whose foundation was built on winning and running. Through the decades, we've had thousands of athletes who have all shown us what winning looks like in their own way. Whether that was Steve Prefontaine, who told his competitors that they would literally have to bleed in order to beat him, or Joan Benoit Samuelson, who paved the way for female distance running and proved that no matter what your gender, if you have a body, you are an athlete, and you can break that personal barrier. And Joni still today is showing us how she breaks barriers no matter what the age as well, as she continues to hammer out the marathons. So here's another look at yet another athlete who's doing a pretty good job at showing us what winning looks like in our sport today. His name is Eliud Kipchoge, and he's become a very good friend of ours at Nike Running. And as our team has spent a lot of time with him and his family and his training camp in the Rift Valley in Eldoret, Kenya, we realized he's much more than just an amazing athlete. He's a family man. He's the leader of 40 of the most talented and elite distance runners in Kenya. And he also happens to be the fastest marathoner in the world in a time of 2 hours and 25 seconds in the marathon. When we talk about creating product for the world's best athletes, Eliud Kipchoge and the Vaporfly have been an absolute game changer for us at Nike Running and also in how we look at the sport in general. So the Vaporfly Elite wouldn't exist today if we didn't have athletes like Eliud Kipchoge or Shalane Flanagan, Galen Rupp, Mo Farah, the list goes on, to help push us and inspire us to create better product. Our athletes tell us that if they don't have this shoe, they are at a competitive disadvantage. We have had 100% athlete adoption in the Vaporfly, and we've never had 100% of our athletes adopt any new track spike or racing flat. Oftentimes, these athletes are receiving the product a day or two before the biggest race of their lives, and the second it goes on their foot, they know that they have to lace up and toe the line in that product to be their best. Competitors of Nike are calling for the product to be banned, that it can't be legal. But we know that the IAAF, which is the sports governing body who we partnered with in the creation of this product, has deemed that the product is fair, that it's us out-innovating our competitors and giving our athletes that advantage. The Vaporfly Elite has literally propelled our Nike athletes to take over 75% of this year's World Major Marathon and World Championship podium positions. So what is the magic inside the shoe that makes it possible? Well, it's actually a system. It's a combination of a tuned carbon fiber plate that's sandwiched between two layers of the lightest and most resilient foam in the industry. The carbon fiber plate acts as the track spike. 8 layers of articulated carbon fiber layered pixel by pixel to take the shape of the foot. Heel to forefoot stiffening elements are added, and this helps to reduce the energy loss and enhance the propulsion, pushing the athlete forward stride to stride. But the real magic that is changing the game is ZoomX foam. It is the lightest foam in the industry and has an 85% energy return, which is the highest that we've ever measured in our internal Nike Sports Research labs. ZoomX is the competitive advantage that our athletes are experiencing. And what I'm most excited about, and the reason that we're here today to talk about this product, is that the team didn't stop with just Eliud and the Vaporfly Elite. We believe that this experience truly is too amazing for just a handful of the world's most elite distance runners. What we have in ZoomX, we believe all runners will want to experience. When our athletes talk about that magic of ZoomX foam, they really hone in on 3 key benefits. The first is that notion of extremely lightweight. Despite the amount of foam that we can put under the foot, the Vaporfly is literally twice the stack heights of the Zoom Streak, which previously was our fastest marathon shoe, and yet we can still deliver that much foam underfoot in a product that's lighter. 2 is the energy return off the ground. We talked about 85% energy return. That means that midsole is compressing at 85% and that rebounds right back, and that's giving that athletes that sensation of flying, literally pushing their foot off the ground and forward into the next stride. And the third benefit, and to some of our athletes, possibly the most important, is the comfort, the cushioning, and the protection of this foam. Before athletes had this product, they started to feel the fatigue of the muscles, of the pounding of a marathon at mile 16, 17, and 18. Now with ZoomX foam underfoot, they're saying that they can actually get to mile 21, 22, and even 23 before they feel some of the onset of the impact of the ground. And even more so, the athletes can come off and recover off of a hard marathon effort faster. A lot of times they don't even have to take a week or 2 weeks off like they did before. Now they can get right back into training and get back into that next competitive training cycle. So all of these benefits are what were in that racing product. And Elliot came to the team and said, I want the magic that you're able to deliver me in my racing product in an everyday training product. Luckily for us, there was a great base to start from, as Elliot, along with most of our elite athletes, train every day in the Zoom Pegasus. So to take the Zoom Pegasus and pack it full of all those key benefits, we knew there was only one key ingredient, one key innovation that could really deliver on those demands, and that was ZoomX. And when you combine the speed of ZoomX and the world's fastest running shoe in the Vaporfly 4% with a name that's trusted and versatile as the Zoom Pegasus, the Pegasus Turbo is the direct result. Okay, so I'm going to go into a little bit more detail now about the tech of the Pegasus Turbo. And first, as I talked about, we're going to start with the Pegasus, because that is the shoe that is trusted by the majority of our athletes and runners over the decades. So we're going to maintain that familiar fit and feel of the Pegasus by utilizing the same last in that feature of consistent fit and feel of the Peg on the Peg Turbo. The upper is going to feature a lightweight mono mesh, and that's really inspired by some of the translucency and transparency that we've had in some of our most recent racing and training products. It's also some of the feedback that we're receiving from our athletes that the air actually flows right through that product, keeping their foot cool and giving them that sensation that they're flying. And on top of the foot, to lock in that midfoot, runners can lace directly through the dynamic flywire cables to lock the foot on top of the midsole for containment and lockdown. In terms of the ride, our athletes asked us to save the plate of the Vaporfly for race day. To make this a versatile, all-day, everyday training product, they wanted us to maximize the amount of ZoomX foam underfoot. And we've done exactly that to deliver those benefits of lightweight, responsiveness, and protection. And we've also added a thin layer of React that will sit closest to the ground. And what React does is it stabilizes that ZoomX midsole and the power that's contained within that ZoomX. And it also offers a layer of durability, as we know that the expectations for a training shoe like the Pegasus Turbo will be to go well over 500 miles. Overall, it's an incredibly bold expression with the iconic drop swoosh and the literal racing line graphic inspired down the forefoot and into the outsole. The expression of speed that equally matches the running experience that our athletes are claiming. And we're going to go a little bit deeper into each of the specific products in the Zoom family, but this is the arsenal of product that sits behind me, all the way from one of the industry's most trusted products in the Zoom Pegasus, and we talked about that edge that we're pushing with the world's fastest racing shoe in the Vaporfly 4%. The Zoom Fly is another amazing option for runners looking for a faster tempo shoe inspired by that Vaporfly. And now we have the Pegasus Turbo for the first time, bringing ZoomX to an all-day, everyday training shoe, making all runners faster.
Hi, everybody. First of all, I just wanted to say I'm so excited to be here because it is my pleasure to work on this product line. And one of my favorite things about it is because the technology is so specific and so intentional in each of these models, it makes it really easy to talk about. Because with this line, like Brett mentioned, we have different experiences that are all part of the Zoom experience. And so depending on someone's individual training goals, their training plans, or the way they want to spend their day on race day, we have the best possible product that our innovation team can give. And so I know you all are product experts in your own right, and so one of the things I'm really excited about is to hear what you believe the local athletes here think is really important and want to know about. And so I hope some of that comes up in the Q&A later. But right now I'll just take you through the tech, and we'll pass around some of the parts for you to kind of feel and then ask more questions about. I know we talk about Vaporfly a lot, but I want to talk about it just a little bit more because it is such a special shoe. And ZoomX is truly a magic foam. And when we say it has 85% energy return, you might ask, like, what does that actually mean? And so we actually do compression testing in the lab, and you apply a certain force to the foam, and 85% energy back is so much more than any of our other foams, where the average foam is typically closer to 60%. And so that extra 25% is a really big deal. And the other thing I want to talk about here is how each change on the shoe is really intentional. It has almost a seamless upper. There is a seam on the medial side here, but that is really purposeful. So sometimes when a seam is up the back of the shoe on a really minimal shoe, there's a possibility of some discomfort. And so very purposefully, this medial seam gives you a glove, one-to-one fit, and then it allows the foam to wrap the Achilles, give you proper heel lockdown, but still keep a very smooth fit around the heel. And so here I have some components of the ZoomX foam. And so as Brett mentioned, there's an upper and a bottom component, and then the carbon fiber plate is sandwiched in between these two. So I'll pass these around, and I don't think I'm gonna have to tell you how light they feel. And so to move on to the Fly, as Brett kind of covered the Vaporfly 4%, the Fly has a ton of racing DNA in it. And yes, it does provide an option at a different price point for racing, but it is truly a different experience. It uses Lunarlon foam, and it has a plate that I'll hand out in a second that is inspired by the 4% carbon plate. You can see it has a similar profile, and you can see that with these ridges, those are actually engineered and tuned to have a similar stiffness as this plate. But you'll also notice the stiffness is different. And that just goes to show that you need a different experience for different types of runs. And so because the foam is different, it makes sense that the physical properties of the plate will also be different. And the other things I want to point out about the Fly is it has so much Vaporfly DNA. You'll see that there's an engineered mesh on both of them that's similar because we wanted to deliver the lightest weight and strongest mesh possible that we clearly do for our most elite shoe. And the last is also a racing last, and it has stack heights that are taller, and those are also inspired by the Vaporfly 4%. And then the cool thing about the Fly is that it's a little bit more of a crossover model. So if we talk about providing different experiences, you could train for a lot of miles in the Fly, but it also crosses over to racing. And so again, providing the best experience possible depending on what you need for training and for race day. And so here we have the main event, the Peg Turbo, which personally I'm really excited about because I've had the pleasure of being in the testing group for this shoe for a long time, so it's really fun to start talking about it. And so again, the magic is in the foam, bringing that underfoot feel of ZoomX into a training shoe for the first time. But there are also a couple other things that are really exciting that I want to talk about. So we all know that weight reduction for a trainer is really, really important. And we took this really seriously when designing the outsole. So rubber is one of the heaviest parts of the outsole in a training shoe. And here we have the rubber outsole for Peg 35. And you can tear this to pieces. You can put on hundreds and hundreds of miles on it. But the Turbo is a souped up version of Peg. And if you compare the outsole of these two, you can see we kept rubber where you need it. It still gives you the traction and the durability that you need out of your training shoe. But the thin web is punched out where you don't need it. So in this way, we reduce as much weight as possible to give you the fast, exciting, snappy experience of the Turbo that it's going to provide, and it's going to keep that magic of the ZoomX foam. So the other thing I want to mention is the simplicity of the midsole. And to me, that's a really, really beautiful thing, because our goal here was to give the ZoomX experience in a training shoe. So we used the chassis of the Peg 35, but we have two basically magic foams. We have the lightweight and we have the energy return of ZoomX. We have some added durability and stability of React. We've maintained the stack heights and the drops of the Peg 35 to make sure you have the same experience of a trainer that all the Peg users know and love. But it's simple, it creates a smooth transition. You don't need other glues, you don't need anything else to change that underfoot feel of the magic. And last but certainly not least, we have Peg 35. And I know this came out a few months ago, but again, it's such an exciting release for us because it's such a cool upgrade from the 34. We kept the experience consistent with the Pegasus experience that everyone knows and loves. But again, we've upgraded. We've added some racing DNA. a full-length Zoom airbag. It's now embedded in the midsole that is the Cushlon foam that everybody knows and loves and has the durability that people expect from PEG. But this bag gives you an extra snap, it gives you an extra aggressive stance, and it makes you feel a little lighter and a little faster. You can see what's consistent between the Turbo and the 35. The heel collar top line slowly tapers away from the Achilles. And this is really important because it still gives you the lockdown you need in your heel, but that tapering away from the Achilles can prevent some irritation on the tendons that you can get from other more traditional training shoes. And so that's an overview of the tech we have. But again, the cool part of this line is that depending on what your goals are for race day and for training day, there's a different way that you can use each of these shoes. And so for example, Eliud Kipchoge, we all know he kills it in a version of Vaporfly 4%. And so he uses that on race day very successfully. But he also does some of his fastest speed work and fartlegs in the Vaporfly. But as you also know, he wanted that underfoot feel in a more casual trainer, a little bit more flexible, something that feels a little bit more everyday. So he uses Turbo for tempo runs and for long runs that he needs an extra kick, he wants to feel fast and he wants to feel snappy. He also loves to train in PEG 35, and he'll use that shoe because it's consistent, he loves it, he's used it, and something that's a little bit more casual, a little slower, and something that he just needs to recover. And you'll also meet Shalane Flanagan a little bit later tonight, but she also runs in the Vaporfly 4%, and that's the shoe she won the New York Marathon in most recently. And so with Shalane, she does a lot of her training, speed work again occasionally in the 4%, but she likes the PEG 35, the consistency, the feel she gets from that. And most recently has added PEG Turbo to her runs, again for something that's a little faster, a little snappier, and then gives the same underfoot feel as the 4%. And then I think the cool thing with one way that Shalane runs is Zoom Fly. She likes to say for certain afternoon runs, because if she's tired and she needs a little extra snap, she calls that her dessert shoe, because you don't want to eat desserts all day every day, but you want to feel really good about that second run when you need the extra kick, and you need the motivation to get through. And so there is your tech out of the Zoom line. Something, again, I'm really excited about, and I hope you're excited about too. So thanks, everybody.